the same time. Oh my god, I can. We're recording. Hi YouTube. Hi YouTube. I don't know. It's not recording the chat, unfortunately, but I'll just read it out. Okay, but yeah, I'm gonna turn off the music for this, because the music I ended up using to like plan out the whole scene wasn't actually the final song. I know a lot of people like to plan their scenes to music, but like for me, I've always found that the music that you choose tends to be kind of arbitrary. Like, I just chose this song because it was in the ZZZ like soundtrack. I thought it sounded cool. But it, like the final song that Subu used in the video was completely different. So, but yeah, the final scene looks like this. I'm surprised it's playing at like a decent frame rate with me streaming and stuff. Oh, my smoke effects! That's the first time I've done 2D animated effects. I was pretty proud of that. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of how this scene turned out, mostly due to the amount of work that I actually put into it, which was probably less than you expect. I think I boarded this and I animated this in a very smart way. I think I was given 30 seconds of time, like roughly, and I think my part ended up being about 35, which like happens. But you know, I didn't add too much time, which can be kind of a thing when you're handed a fight scene. But it didn't balloon too much, which is really cool. But general question: when we talk about anime fight and animation, VFX often plays a huge part. Often when you remove the effects, the motion would look weird. So when you animate, how do you determine that, alright, that's good enough, no need to polish further? VFX will make it look great. I think it depends on like the type of animation you're doing, because like a lot of animation like this, I think the stuff that I tend to do, like I'm not really thinking about the VFX at all. I'm not really thinking about the slashes or anything like that. Like, I mean, of course, I consider them when the animation's more like a Demon Slayer type style, where there's like lots of poses and they're kind of holding their like attack. They're holding the slash, or they're like, it's very like pose to pose type of stuff. And then the VFX will matter a lot. But like for the animation I tend to do tends to be more like movement based. So like, I try to make it look as good as I can without the effects. And that's just because in 3D, usually the VFX are someone else's job. So like someone else did the VFX for me. So I don't have to actually, I'm trying to make the animation look as good as possible without the VFX. Because the animation is part of my job. Oh my god, Crab! What's up, dude? It's Mr. Nuts. It's Mr. Crab. Mr. Nuts? I don't know. But yeah, I guess we can get started. So I'm gonna open this up on the side. Actually, I'll do it here. Let's do it here. I will open up another, text editor. And basically, I don't know if I can show you guys the script. So actually, this is the fun thing about the way that I like to work. And I don't always get to work this way, but it's a good question, brother. Brother 4 a.m. So did you make the scene all by yourself, or were there storyboards from other artists? I actually made the entire scene all by myself. So I basically started with a blank slate. So again, I don't know if I can open I don't know if I can open up the script for you, but it wasn't too detailed of a script. Essentially, the script boiled down to like, it was like, they fight while falling down building and crash into the ground. That was the whole thing. And so it's my job, and it's pretty uncommon to work this way professionally, to be honest with you, but I find it really fun. It was my job to basically I'm like, okay, they're at the top of the building, and they have to go all the way to the bottom of the building. It's a big ass building, by the way. Go all the way to the bottom and crash into the ground, right? And I have to make that interesting to watch. I have to make the choreography like, you know, like dynamic and have their back and forth. So a couple things I wanted like going into it, like I didn't have any like visuals in my head at all, really. There was only just a couple of points I wanted to hit while going into it. So like one would be, and actually let me open up Discord real quick. so I can, because I had some notes. So let me just boop boop boop. So yeah, the okay, so yeah, the deadline of this was super short. I think it was like, I mean, it was actually a pretty reasonable deadline if I was able to work on this full time. Actually, like to be completely honest, I think I had like 3 or 4 weeks, something like that, like including from start to finish, like maybe 3 weeks. But obviously, I work full time, and like this is like an indie animation, so the pay isn't enough to like for this to be my full-time job, right? So even though I had 3 weeks, right, I basically only worked on it on weekends. And so my main priority when animating this was like I wanted to make it good, of course, but the main priority was I wanted to make it easy to animate, right? Like I wanted it to be something that wouldn't require too much effort. And then the second thing was like I wanted to make sure, you know, the concept of the video is that they're fighting over a melon. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't creating like a fight that was like they're fighting each other, right? But I don't want that to be the I don't want that to be the thing that people are focusing on, right? Because they're fighting over something. So the object of their like attention, the object of their like the thing they want to grab, should be center focus. Yeah, there was it was a very quick deadline. In terms of how many hours I worked on this shot, I probably hours-wise in total, I maybe worked... I didn't work consistently every day, so I can give you like a whole day estimate. I think it was like probably like about a week, maybe 7 days hours-wise. Like near the end, I started working, especially on the weekends. I would work like 12, 16 hours, just like trying to get it done. But yeah, so the second big point was I wanted to make sure that the melon was the main focus. So again, they're not just fighting each other. I wanted it to be like a story-driven thing. Like I wanted their motivation to be very clear. And then the third thing was that I wanted to make sure that basically it wasn't choreo slap. And so choreo slap, I would define it as like it's along the same lines as the previous point, which is them having a main focus, them having like motivation for their actions, and have some interplay during the fight. So it's not just like fight, you know, like there needs to be like there needs to be like story, there needs to be like something for to take the viewer for a ride, right? Like if I were to way to describe it, like if we go up here for a second, let's place it in view because we can erase it later. I think I need a new annotation. Yeah. So if we have a graph here, and it's like I want the viewers like attention and their emotion to go like whoa, 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 whoa. You know, I want to take them on a journey kind of. And I feel like if they're just fighting back and forth, if this is like a graph of the audience's attention, so we have attention up here. Ooh, I can't rate. Attention. Good enough. And then like this is like over time. So their attention's gonna like wane. It's gonna rise and wane throughout the thing, right? Because that's just how it works. That's how people watch things. Like if it's the same energy for too long, like if a music is like the same like level of intensity for too long, you're gonna get bored of the song, right? And so it's the same kind of thing here. If they're just fighting and it's just intense fighting the whole way through, it's gonna be like, whoa, and then they kind of like stop caring. When you definitely want something that kind of builds up to the climax up here, right? So that's kind of the idea of it, basically. So those are like my main points that I wanted to make sure that I hit while making the fight. And then after that, I sort of basically got into designing the fight itself. Yeah, Shigemori, basically, yeah. To put it simply, basically, story depth, yeah. So in order to create the story depth, I wanted to make sure that, again, they were fighting over the melon, and to do that, I wanted to have the melon change possession like a few times. And so arbitrarily, I think because I think I was in this whole like fight section where they were like in the hollow. I think I was one of the first people to start animating. So, and I also had the last part, and so I got to choose first, basically. I arbitrarily chose Miyabi to have the melon at the beginning. Oh, Ray, my goat! You're also my goat. I love you. I'm gonna be seeing him in the what's today? This Sunday. I'm gonna be seeing him next week. Wahoo! I love Ray. Anyway, so yeah, I arbitrarily chose Miyabi to have the melon at the beginning. And basically, what would happen is Miyabi would have the melon, and then Remiel would take it from her, and then Miyabi would take it back, right? And so in that way, there's like interplay between like who has the melon. So that way, there's like you can think about it as someone having the upper hand, right? And they have to continuously chase each other, right? Because if no one has the melon, if the melon is falling and no one has it, then they're just fighting each other the whole way through, right? Like if the melon's falling, then like why wouldn't they just dive after the melon to try to be the one who grabs it first, right? Like someone has to have it in order for them to justify them actually attacking each other, is how I basically viewed it. And again, Miyabi having the melon at the beginning was kind of arbitrary. And I also wanted, so I had that dynamic. So we'll just, I'm not sure, write it down here, and I can post these notes, I guess, maybe, so it'll help with yours. So Miyabi has melon in the beginning. Remiel takes it, and then Miyabi takes it back. Like pretty simple, right? But it's like, even this is like a story arc, and you know, a little bit of a story arc. And then I also wanted to take inspiration. I don't know if you guys have seen Dead Fantasy or know what that is, but it's a fight series that's done by the late animator Monty Ohm, which I think for a lot of fight animators like me is like a very big inspiration. Yeah, the goat. So I'm gonna play this clip for you because you can see kind of where I took like the big inspiration from. So let me just, and I think I don't think I timestamped it. Oh, I did. Fantastic. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna mute it so I don't get copyright. But there's a part in the fight here while they're falling down the tower where yeah, after this part. So Hitomi and the gang, they jump away. They're like, whoa. And then Tifa and the gang are like, what the hell? They turn around and there's this whole like obstacle course they have to navigate now. And so that goes into like what makes a fight interesting. It goes back to that graph I drew, right? Where like, how do you keep the audience's attention? Because like after, you know, a certain amount of time, you know, maybe 10 seconds, it can be longer if it's like really good, but like, you know, a relatively short amount of time these days, like the audience will start to kind of get bored. So you need to add things into your fight that change things up basically. And so the three things that you can change, like in my opinion, is like you change environment. So you literally have them enter a different environment. An example of this would be like, I don't know if you guys have seen Shang-Chi, right? But like the fight on the bus, let's say, right? The fight on the bus, you know, there's a part where they're fighting inside the bus, and then he goes on top of the bus, and then he goes like to the front of the bus. Like it's using the environment. It changes like where, like even though it's the same, like as a whole environment, like changing where they are physically, like helps keep the audience's attention because like, oh, this is new. The other thing you could do is you can change the tactics. So right, so like you've seen some of those fights. I think there was one in Dead Fantasy as well. There's like I think it's the third one. Like I would say this kind of represents kind of what I'm talking about. Like there's a part where Hitomi gets like, she gets her shit rocked kind of, yeah, right here. So she's all bleeding and stuff. And then she like visibly changes her like fighting style, her fighting stance. And then that cues to the audience like, oh shit, like this is like a new chapter in the fight. Or like that kind of thing. You know, maybe one character goes from like trying to all out brutally hit the enemy to like, okay, now I'm gonna be, you know, more like Tai Chi. I'm gonna be flowy. I'm gonna redirect attacks, and I'm gonna like, yeah, like fight differently than I did before to throw off the enemy. Um, and then the other thing, which it's hard to do if you're not in control of the story itself, is you can change the stakes. So the stakes of the fight being like, in this fight, the stakes of the fight was like, who gets the melon, right? And I didn't really have control over like the writing of the thing. But like if you're making a fight scene, right? Like a good example is the Doc Ock and Spider-Man fight in Raimi's Spider-Man 2, when the one where he like stops the train. Because at the beginning, right, they're fighting over. I think they're fighting because she took Aunt May, right? And then he saves Aunt May, but then they go on a train, and then they're fighting on the train, and then Spider-Man's trying to capture Doc Ock, but then Doc Ock like, makes the train. He like takes out the brake or whatever, and he like makes it rush forward. And now the stakes of the fight are like, now Spider-Man has to save the people, right? So like changing the stakes of like what the protagonist is after also works. But for this fight, I mostly focused on these two. Yeah, it's very similar to, like, a lot of a good fight is like honestly storytelling. So I would very much encourage people who want to make fights to like study like storytelling. It doesn't take much. Like, this is the story, right? This is the story that I made up, because this is what I was given with the script, right? They fight while falling down a building, and I just tried to turn it into this, just so that there was something for the people to take them on a journey, and even just a little bit helps. But yeah, so I wanted to include a change of environment somehow, and so that goes back to the dead fantasy thing that I showed you before. This part here, where they jump away, turn around, and I was like, what? So I basically wanted to rip that. So I wanted to add some environment change. And I also wanted to add some tactic change in order to keep it interesting throughout the whole 30 seconds. Yeah, so exactly what Zap Zapper says. So my problem often with gacha fighting is that I can't feel the danger of the fight. Everything is too light, can't feel the struggle, the danger. I feel this way even about official movies, which are made by big pro teams. Yeah, and I can't speak to that because I know a lot of work is put into those things, so I can't speak as to why it's like that. But I would wager that these studios, especially the gacha studios, they don't want to make the characters look weak, right? And so having one character like losing the fight and being beat up, I think they don't want to. I would say they probably don't want to portray the character like that because maybe it will impact sales, like in their mind. I don't know. But I mean, maybe just might not be their style. I'm not sure. But with this in mind, I decided to start creating the fight. So one other thing that was in the script was that they take like one of these, I forget what it's called in Zunless. They take it's like a portal basically. I think a fissure. They take a fissure to get to the top of the building. And I think one of the other animators that I was working with, named Isaac, he had the idea of, I think, them fighting on the train. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they took the train through the fissure? And so they're like on a train, and it's going really fast, and they go through the fissure, and then now they're falling down the building. Like, that'd be really interesting to me. And admittedly, I did kind of force that on everybody, because again, I was the first one to start animating, so I was like, well, I'm just going to do this now. You guys have to adjust to me. So, sorry, Isaac. But, yeah. So the first shot was like, this is like a pretty simple shot. The thing I wanted to make sure that I show to the audience was like, they're about to fall down a building, basically. So I have this kind of shot where it's like, we have the kind of leading lines. We have the ground that's super far away. If I had the ability to arrange the buildings more, I probably would have arranged them in a way that like points to the center, like that. But I mean, I think this shot gets the job done. And then, it was slow-mo. Again, just to give the audience time to register. Like, I don't want them to look so much as the characters. I don't want them to look here. I want them to look, like right here. I want them to look at the big, like, the ground, basically. And then after that, I cut to a side view because usually when it's a slow-mo shot and then I want to kind of cut, I want there to be a lot of impact after the slow-mo shot, I'll cut to just a different shot. So like I very well could have just had them keep going here and stayed on this camera. And then like, let's see, if I even like, I'm gonna delete this. And if I stay in this camera, right, like it would look basically something like that. Boom, boing. But that doesn't feel as impactful as switching the camera angle, because switching the camera angle is a sudden change in the viewer's like field of view, right? Like it goes from this, and then like every pixel on the screen changes, and that's what makes like the impact kind of. So that's why I wanted to change camera angles here. And then again, so Miyabi has the melon. I probably could have showed it more. I think it got lost in some of the clothing. The clothing animation I tend to do last. So if I turn off the clothes, you should be able to see the melon a bit more clearly. I can't turn off the sleeve. Oh, there you go. So yeah, the clothes kind of get in the way a little bit, but I mean it is what it is. And then in terms of, and I'll go ahead and open up the layout file so I can kind of show you guys my entire process. But basically the entire fight I planned out by just animating the root. Because they're flying through the air, that's how I find is easiest to plan out, like flying fight animation. I think Septic, if you guys know Septic on Twitter, he posted a fight animation recently too, and he also did layout, and he just animated the roots kind of flying around. And yeah, again, when they're flying around in space, I think animating the root just to figure out kind of where they are in the camera is the most efficient way to do layout. So you can see here, it just looks like this. And because I'm just animating their root control, like literally just this guy here, it makes it super easy to like this is a super fast pass. Like I think I can do like a pass like this in like 20 minutes because again, it's just one control. Boop. And then this shot was funny. So this shot was inspired by here, I'll go ahead and do this. So this shot was inspired by I think Subutai mentioned that he wanted a shot that was like POV of the melon, but he wanted it kind of like the melon was like still on the ground, and then the characters were like fighting all around it. So he didn't want the melon. He didn't mention anything about the melon moving. But I had the idea of like what if the melon was falling down the building, and like the camera was kind of attached to the melon, and then you could see the characters kind of fighting around it. And if I had more time, I would have made that section a little bit longer. But I think this is kind of cool enough. You get to kind of see them fighting there, and then Remiel takes the melon. Kind of fun. And again, this is all planned out with root animation. So it's falling down the building here. And I should mention actually the way that I set this up, because again, animating like them actually falling down the building would be quite hard. And so usually you would do something that's called a treadmill. So this would be considered a treadmill if you see how the building is moving, right? You might have seen shots like that where the environment is like it looks like the characters are moving through the environment, but in reality the characters are still, and it's the environment that's moving around them, and that gives the illusion of movement. I was only able to do that for one shot, which was this one here. And that's because them falling through space, the building wasn't moving fast enough for my liking, so I decided to move the building. And then once it pans to the ground, I just kept the building still after that. You can see like boom, and then it stops. But the way that I had to do it for most of this fight, because I did need them to actually move through space, was I parented their root controls to a bunch of different empties. So these have different empties, and I noted them down here just so I made sure like when the characters are connected to what empty. So like here, Tony Fight 5, which is this shot here, they're connected to Falling Empty 2, which is this one here. So if I go to object mode, I can get to the animation of this. So there's an empty that's like moving. It's aligned to the axes of the building, and it's moving down. So if you turn off the animation, if I turn it off, you can see the characters, they're not moving that much. Right? If I go in the camera view, right? They're basically not moving at all. I animated it as if there was downward motion, but um, in terms of them actually like falling down the building, I animated after I had their like root motion animated. I basically just took the empty and I just slid it down the building. So when we turn the animation back on, it looks like they're moving in the camera. And that was basically the entire technique I used like throughout the entire animation. You can see the empty right here. Well, I think it might be, is it unparented? Oh no, yeah, this one. So I could just like move the whole thing, the characters and the train, or the train proxy. And a part of that was also because, again, if I have them falling down like at like a normal pace, they're only going to cover maybe like this much distance. Did I turn off? Yeah, they're only going to cover like this much distance, which doesn't look that good in the camera. Like if you can see how far they go in this shot, they go like pretty far. You know, and if they went that same speed, they would reach the ground much sooner than the shot ends. I use just the ordinary camera object. Someone's asking why if I use the ordinary rig or ordinary camera or the dolly rig. I just use an ordinary camera. It's just what I'm used to. I don't think there's any like benefit to using a normal, like just a camera by itself. Um, that's just how I've always used it, so I'm kind of used to it at this point. Um, but yeah, so I've connected all of the characters to those empties, and they're falling down the building. Um, And if you notice here, I actually split this into two shots. So it looks like a one shot kind of thing, right? She grabs and takes it and the camera follows it. But I kind of knew that it would be very annoying to do in all the one shot. So I actually split the shot basically right as she grabs the camera. So right as she grabs the camera, the melon fills the frame, and that's a new shot. And that's mostly because I don't know, it was kind of like an intuitive feeling I felt. I just felt like this and this have such different animation, and especially this, I wanted to animate it in a certain way. Um, with their uh like with their roots, you see how their roots are pointing downward. So the axes for the roots are currently like this, right? And I wanted the axes of the roots when I actually animated it, like not in layout, but when I actually animated it to be aligned with the building, right? So I wanted it to look, you know, like one-to-one with the building. So that way, this makes your graph editor curves line up. To put it simply, basically, I wanted forward on the building to be forward to the characters. And right now, forward to the characters, if I just go to a new frame, like forward on the building's perspective is this way, and to the characters, forward is this way, right? And that makes the graph editor curves hard to handle. So for layout, it's fine because I'm just trying to get a visual of what I want the shot to look like. But once I start animating it, I'm going to take the root and I'm going to rotate it and I'm going to put it on the building in a way that aligns with the actual root, with the actual building itself. So now the forward axis is this way, they're the same, and it makes it easier to animate. How do you make your shot cuts from shot to shot feel so fluid? Often I myself have two shots and they by themselves look decent, but when I try to cut from the first to second, it looks like shit. Well, that might be an issue with the 180-degree rule. It also might be an issue with I don't know the word for it, but like where the audience is focused. So for this kind of shot, right? If you look at where the audience is focused, they're mostly focused here. They're mostly focused in the center. You know, maybe they're looking at Miyabi or looking at Remiel, but like all of the action is taking place in the center. They're looking at Remiel now, right? So when I cut to the next shot, I very quickly want Miyabi to also be in the center. 180-degree rule. Shall we take a tangent, my friends? Shall I explain the 180-degree rule? Yeah? Let's do it. Why not? We're flying by wire on this stream anyway. Yeah, so the shot starts with Miyabi not in the center, but she's not in the center for I think 2, maybe 3 frames. 1, 2, yeah, like once she gets to here, that's basically the center, and it's 2 frames. So 2 frames is not that much time. So basically how I would describe it is like as long as something enters the frame in the same spot and very quickly, they're not going to be looking over here and then their eyes are dragged over here, right? Because it's too fast. So if they're already looking here, and then 2 frames pass and there's something here, they're only going to notice the thing in the middle, kind of. Basically, yeah, every new shot you want to find the focal point, and you want the focal point of the shot to remain like relatively consistent, right? Like you don't want a shot where the focus is here for whatever reason they're in the camera here, and then you cut to the next shot and their focus is here, right? Or their focus is here. If there's something here on the next shot, you could get away with something big in the middle, you know? It's kind of complex. Like another thing to consider is like directional energy. So if they're starting here, but they're moving this way, they're moving towards the camera, and um, like in a diagonal, then the next cut could very feasibly start over here and also be moving this way, because the energy is kind of flowing. But that's a little bit more of a complex example. Yeah, Roach is exactly right. You can kind of guide the eye between cuts. But yeah, let's go over the 180-degree rule first, shall we? Why not? And you know what I'll do? You guys want a preview of some characters I've been working on? Let me open them. God, I have so much. My drives are so full, guys. They take 5 years to open. Ah. Let's open this. We're gonna open this guy. Yeah, many projects. Let's just save as 180-degree example. Fuck. I can't spell. There we go. So we'll just stay in solid mode for this. Or sorry, flat shaded. And we can keep the environment, sure. Let's turn cavity back on actually. And then I'm gonna append the other guy. I love appending. It's my favorite thing. Yeah, sure. I think this one. Okay, so we have our guys. And the 180-degree rule is essentially, it's a rule about guiding the eye line of the characters. So if the characters are looking at each other, right? We can maybe put them closer. Let's say they're talking, and this is the view that you're looking through. Let me turn pass part out on because I don't like seeing extra things. So this is the view you're looking at, and we'll go to the. Oh, should we go to the layout tab? Yeah, so I can keyframe some stuff. Sorry, 2 seconds. There we go. Holy lag. Okay, I might have too many Blender files open. Okay. So if this is the starting thing that we're looking at, right? And we can keyframe the camera here, and then blah blah blah. Maybe they talk for I don't know how many frames. Just an arbitrary amount of frames. The next cut, if you were to go over here, right? Like something like this. Like this would look very strange. And you can kind of see the change looks strange because the character's on the right side and we're looking at this character talking. And then when this character's talking, it crosses the imaginary 180-degree line between these two characters here. So the camera starts over here and now it's over here. So it makes the audience feel a little confused. Like a better cut would be instead to be on the other side. So I'll just move this. Would be to be something like this. Like this feels much more natural. I couldn't exactly tell you why, but just in filmmaking this tends to feel more natural. Shot reverse shot type shit, right? Whereas before, if we look at the character even, the character position in the camera, yeah. So Teo is here, the blue guy is here, and now he's over here, right? And then if we were to like cut back, it's like this doesn't play very well. I'm gonna extend this so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I think it's a little confusing. Yeah, it kind of forces your eyes to reorient. But like they're talking and then, yeah, I don't know. It feels very like, it just feels, yeah, best way I would describe it is it feels very unnatural. But basically the idea is that um, the audience needs to be grounded on where they're looking, right? Um, and if the way you do that is to making sure the characters kind of stay on their side of the screen. Like this blue guy owns the right side of the screen. This red guy owns the left side of the screen. So when you are cutting to the next, the next shot, you want to make sure that they stay in their relative, where they own. So you could even cut like here, right behind this guy. And like, because the blue guy's still on the right side of the screen, this cut doesn't feel unnatural. And we kind of know where we are. You can kind of get away with cutting to like a general like front shot. So again, if this is a 180-degree line and you want to stay on this side of it, right? 180-degree line, and you want to stay on like, this side of the arc. You could still get away with being on the line itself if it was like a front-on shot. Something like this. Right? So then he's like, what? It's a big reveal maybe. The other thing you could do is like you could do a shot. Let's say it's like this. And we go over here. And we start on this side. There's been kind of shots like this before. Let me keyframe this actually. If we go onto this side, we can cross the 180-degree line if it's like within the same cut. So we can kind of have the camera do this kind of thing. Kind of just go like this. Like maybe there's a big reveal happening, and this kind of feels a little dramatic, I suppose, right? So, maybe they're talking, and then he's saying something, and then he's like, "What?" or whatever. He starts talking, and like it slowly goes to the other side. Feels like the dynamic of the conversation changes. But yeah, that's like a very small tangent of like, if I were to boil it down, basically, if a character starts on the right side, try to keep them on the right side. If a character starts on the left side, try to keep them on the left side. And don't let that change unless it's in the same cut. And following that rule, your cuts should feel more cohesive. But yeah, sorry. Okay, let's get back to it. Let me turn this off too. So for the next few shots, these were all pretty. I had Miyabi jump out of the frame. Like again, her energy goes this way. So I just had her kind of leap into the frame this way. Again, she's still more or less in the center. So this is like Remiel looking at Miyabi, and this is the dead fantasy moment. This is where Miyabi or Remiel goes like what's happening? Why did she stop fighting? And then she turns around because she realizes something must be up. And by the time she realizes, this is her like POV, we're seeing through Remiel's eyes. There's a big train about to hit her face. So we cut to Remiel, center shot, and she kind of slices the train in half. That makes it feel like I wanted to do that because it felt like a change of if we go back, it goes back to this. I felt like a change of like environment, like something happened in the environment that was different than what it was before. Like there was the train, but it didn't really play a part in the fight. And then once the train enters the like once the train is used in the fight, it just adds a little bit of change to keep the audience engaged, I guess is how I would describe it. And then we have a foot shot here. So this is like an insert shot of like, it makes it really easy. Like I could have had a shot of like Miyabi kind of dashing like at the camera, and it's like super dynamic. But again, I wanted to keep the animation super easy to make, right? And so this is like a foot insert shot of her. It just shows that she intends to dash at Remiel without having to show too much. And insert shots tend to be kind of good for that kind of stuff. So she's dashing again from screen right to screen left, so from this side to this side. And then next cut, she's going right to left again. And she's going to hit Remiel. Boom. Remiel flies out screen right to screen left. The next cut shows her flying out screen right to screen left. And I wanted to make sure that it was very noticeable that she dropped the melon. So like I think I actually had the melon stay much closer to frame than she did, like initially, even though it doesn't make sense like physics-wise. I just needed the audience to like because they're gonna see the character with giant wings and like in all white, like flying away. Like even if she's in the background, like they're gonna see her just because of how much like eye real estate she takes up by being all white. So I wanted to make sure that the melon would be seen. So I had to keep the melon closer to the camera. So that way when it fell, like the audience is more likely to look at that. Like I hope. That was kind of the goal. And then again, this kind of shot, again, I'm keeping the energy the entire time going this way. So what's a good, yeah, you can see green. So the entire time for this section, the energy is going right to left. So right to left, she spins to like stop herself, and then she shoots her like little laser beams thing. This is still, in this shot I had Miyabi there in case I felt like animating her, but I really wanted to hide her behind smoke because I didn't want to make more animation for myself. And I wanted to make sure that you could see the melon here as well. So they have all these laser beams fighting her like pa 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 pa. And in the next shot, she's dodging all of the lasers. You know, in most of the animations I make, there tends to be a shot like this. Like I've done a lot of fights for Dylan Goo, and I think in most of the fights I've done, there's like one like side-scrolling like shot of someone dodging projectiles. It's like I just tend to do that. I don't know. I like it. And then she dashes past Miyabi. So again, this is an example of like in the audience's frame of mind, right? Remiel's on the left, Miyabi's on the right. So even in this shot, right, where Remiel's not in the cut, in the next cut, I made sure to keep, you know, Miyabi on the right, Remiel on the left. Again, just to make things cohesive. So she dashes past. Miyabi's like, fuck, I didn't hit her. I gotta go grab the melon. And they're flying at the melon. This is like a relatively... Well, this was actually kind of hard to get right because, again, I didn't want to add too much time. But like these next few cuts are like relatively simple. There's not much animation happening, right? We get a bit of a Yuri action here. I love Yuri. Anyway, this whole sequence, this last bit was planned. The way I planned it was, I will switch to this. Also, I stopped the music. No one told me. Yeah, Yuri. Yeah, dude. But yeah, so the last bit of the scene, I wanted to kind of introduce again a change of environment. And so in this scene, they're chasing after the melon. It's very intense. They're aiming to get the melon. The melon is center, you know, big in the camera. But immediately after, it's followed by a shot of like the camera just rushing to the ground, right? And that's like the new danger. The new danger is like, oh shit, they're gonna hit the ground, and that's like the audience is also gonna realize like, oh shit, they're gonna hit the ground. Now, to be fair, they're like super powered, like void hunters, so I don't really know how much the audience felt the danger in this, but I tried to convey it as much as I could because again, I want there to be a little bit of danger in the fight at least. So it's this quick shot of them rushing at the ground, and then because Miyabi's gonna take the melon, in the planning of the fight, I was like, okay, well, what if Remiel kind of like is the one to notice that they're about to hit the ground, and then so instead of trying to like outdo Miyabi and grab the melon before her, she decides to change her priorities in the moment and save Miyabi from like splatting on the ground, basically. And so during the planning of the fight, like everything kind of fell into place after that, because thinking about it, right, like Remiel should have the advantage in this entire section, right, because they're fighting in the air and Remiel has wings, so it makes sense that like they're in kind of her domain. So like what would be the reason for Remiel to not have the melon at the end? Well, it's because she had to give up that as her priority in order to like save Miyabi from dying, essentially. So I would say like at the end, I can paste it here. It turned into, oh, why didn't it paste? I had it written out too. No. That's unfortunate. Well, yeah, so basically it went Miyabi has the melon at the start, and Ramiel takes it from her. And she's stronger in the air, so Miyabi has to kind of like fight smart. She uses the train to kind of get some advantage, right? Like a momentary advantage over Ramiel. She makes Ramiel drop the melon, and then Miyabi goes to chase after it. And they're approaching the ground, and so even though Ramiel could probably fly faster downwards than Miyabi, like she can like actually get propulsion to grab the melon before her. Because they're about to hit the ground, she tries to like grab Miyabi and stop them from hitting the ground. And that allows Miyabi to grab the melon at the end. And so that's the final change of possession. And then, of course, they're too close to the ground to actually stop, so then they hit the ground anyway. And so that was kind of the whole planning of the fight. Again, I did all the animation with roots. So this planning, I think, took maybe in total... I think I did this all on a weekend, a singular weekend. It wasn't too bad. The big thing was just creating a pipeline for myself to actually animate like smoothly. I think someone asked earlier, how do I, since it was animated all in one blend file, how did I deal with like shot length changes? And actually, I didn't animate it all in one blend file. So I did all of the layout in one blend file, so that way I can control the shot lengths itself. So I can kind of see in the edit, like, okay, this shot needs to be longer, this shot needs to be shorter. But the reason that there are all these markers here was that once I got the edit to be what I want, and something that the director approved, like I had to show it to Subutai, and he had to approve it, of course, right? Once it was all approved, I actually animated every marker to marker, every shot here, I animated in its own separate one file, so I can like open my folder and show you. So these are all the final animations. So this doesn't include like every like iteration saved, like if I go back here, like I have V002, V003, like one of these I have like V005 or something, you know, like I just save when I panic save, when I'm like, oh, it crashed, I should save to save my work. But yeah, each shot is its own blend file. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to there's 23 cuts, you know, in my shot. Do you typically plan on paper first or just kind of go in it for 3D layout? I mean, I would plan on paper, but I usually don't storyboard fights. Like I don't, maybe I'll thumbnail a drawing if I like wanna, but usually the on paper planning for me looks kind of like this, right? So I'm just trying to figure out like what happens, like, and I think for me like words are enough because I have the dynamic of the fight, and then I can kind of jump into 3D after that is what I would say. The reason for separate shots, I know there are some people who really like to animate everything in one shot. For me, the reason why everything has to be in separate shots is because, you know, in one shot, the character's hand may be parented to like another character, right? Like let's say a character's leaning on another character. You might need some certain constraint set up in the shot, but then in the next shot you don't need that, right? And so you'd have to turn all the constraints off once the camera cut, and it's much easier to just have that be an entire new cut than to deal with all the constraint magic, you know, over multiple shots, right? Because if it's all in separate shots, then you only have to deal with constraints, and you only have to deal with complicated constraint setups in a singular shot. Another reason to cut it up for me, it's like a mental thing, is like certain shots like this one or like this one that are really short, I can finish them really fast, and it kind of makes me not like, yeah, it kind of like increases my motivation, or it makes me feel like I'm being very productive because I'm like, oh, I could tick this off the list, right? Whereas like if I'm animating it all in one shot, then I'm like, okay, I got this done and this done, but like look how much I have left to do, and it's like, oh, fuck, you know. Um, so it's kind of like a mental thing. Let's see. I think I missed a question here. Yeah, basically, yeah, snowy. Yeah, basically, separate shots are easier to navigate. For me, it's a personal thing. You don't have to. I would say in general, the industry, especially the professional industry, like leans in that direction. Like I think most pipelines are separate shots. And yeah, also Roach brings up a good point. If you want to retime a shot, retiming a singular shot, like a singular frame range, is much easier than retiming one, and then you have to adjust like all the keyframes after it, right? If you just adjust this one shot, then you just have these one keyframes to work with. Um, yeah, so Shigemori, that's another thing, right? Is if you have a lot of keyframe data and a lot of characters in one shot and it's long, like it might crash a lot, and that is also not fun. I think someone asked how I went from root to full body. So um, in certain shots, like this one here, I basically just kept the root animation more or less, and I just started posing the character on top of it because again, they're not contacting anything, so it's kind of fine. Um, and other shots like well, they're still flying around here. Like say this one, for example, right? I actually deleted the root animation after like before starting. So if we go and you could see the roots here and how they move, right? And then if we go to the same shot in the animated version, um, it's completely different. So let me just turn on the rigs. You can see her roots actually right here. Again, it's aligned with the building, and this is this is for the purpose of like making sure that the graph editor axes align with the building. Because again, I wanted forward to be downward on the building. Like I wanted the directions to line up. So you can see how this root kind of aligns nicely with the building, whereas before it was kind of like this, right? So if I grab her torso, let's say, and I go to the graph editor, uh, and nothing is showing up, and I don't know why. How strange. Oh, I know why. I have to open the NLA editor. Oh, the NLA editor. So that was the other thing. I'll get into this later. I use the NLA extensively in this. I usually don't, to be completely honest with you, but just because of the workflow, I kind of had to. But okay, so if we select the torso now, and we go to the Y location, which is I think it's forward on this rig. Yeah, you can see if I move the curve, she's going up and down parallel to the building. Whereas if her route is, you know, changed, it's like this, it's like diagonal or it's not aligned with the building, then forward kind of becomes this kind of arbitrary direction, and it makes it much harder to animate. So in general, you want your graph editor curves, you want them to be aligned with like the main direction of the motion, the main direction of the camera, whatever makes it easiest. So again, for me, I felt that having the route aligned with the building, just like this one here, um, making, forward and backward and left and right, like especially if I move the x-axis, let me just undo this real quick. If I move the x location, you can see left and right. It's very like, it aligns perfectly with the building, and that makes it easy because I'm like, oh, I need her to be a little more to the right side. I can just grab the graph editor and go boop, and move her this way. Um, but going back to the question of like, how did I go from root animation to to fully animated with foot contacts? Basically, if there was foot contacts, I deleted the root animation and I just animated it from scratch because again, I had the reference motion, right? I had the I had this here to go off of. So I no longer needed the actual root animation there to complete the final animation. And so that's basically how I did that. Um, I think, was there another question? I forgot. Yes, this is Crab's rig. Crab Nuts. Shout out to my Crab Nuts. I think he altered the rig a lot for us for this because, well, I didn't have too many requests because I'm afraid of making rig requests because I'm also a rigger, and so I know what it's like when I'm like I got to change the rig constantly. But there was a lot of rig requests for him to change. So shout out to Crab for accommodating us. Animators are kind of divas. I'm sorry, but anyway, um, let me go back to the NLA. So I can show you guys the reason why I use the NLA. So again, the fight was split into multiple shots, and usually that's fine because usually the pipeline for an animated studio is like you render shot by shot, and you do lighting shot by shot, um, and you do compositing shot by shot. I think the way that Subutai's studio works is they want to do everything in as big of a file as possible, you know, um, because then they only have to do effects in one file, and it makes certain things easier for other departments. For me, again, for the reasons I've explained, that makes animating super hard. So I had to find a way to basically animate in multiple shots, but then at the end of the day, combine them. So what I ended up doing was once I finished the animation, again, in these individual files, um, I made sure to bake everything, and I made sure the baking being like it sets a keyframe on every single frame of the frame range. So you can see if I go, to the oops, yeah, if I go to the NLA here and I go to the dope sheet, you can see there's a keyframe on every single frame, right? So this is to make sure that the character on every single frame is where I want them. That's what baking is. So if I go back here, in these individual animation files, I took the actions and I put them in NLA editor and I basically stitched them together one after the other. So the way you can think about this is that each of these strips here is like a chunk of animation. And I basically just lined up the chunks of animation to go one after the other in order to form the illusion of the animation of being all in one shot. Yeah. So the baking the animation is an automatic process. So it's like if you just search like bake animation, it's right there. And it'll just do it for you. There's these like options or whatever. So I didn't have to do it manually, if that's what you're asking. But once the animation was done, then I could like bake it, and then it would key it every frame for me. So no Zap, I didn't key every frame manually. Yeah, I did bake it. Yeah, in general, yeah. What keying set did I use? I think I just used Lockrot scale. Pretty sure. No, I'm wrong. Actually, I'm lying to you. I'm sorry. I use the keyframe menu. So my keyframe hotkey is F, because I like to pay respects when I animate, I guess. So if you press F and then you see how these first letters here have a little underline, some of these have underline. That's what's called an accelerator key. So if I go, let's just say to Remiel's rig, if I press F and then you can see like the W key, whole character, that's it sets a keyframe on all of the bones. It sets a keyframe on all of the properties like iFollow, iParent, like everything that you could possibly key in the rig. It gets keyed when you use whole character. And if I want to do that, I just press F and W, right? You have Lockrot scale here. You can press F and I. You can see the little I underlined right there, Fi. So I actually don't use the keying set at all. I think Blender's default keying set, I have that set to E. So if I press E, I think it keys Lockrot scale for me. But most of the time I'm using this keyframe menu here. Just because it has the accelerator keys, it makes it super, super easy. Puggy asks if when I'm done with the layout file, do I duplicate it and do poses on the animation file on top of the layout? Essentially, yeah. So basically, I would just duplicate the animation file a bunch of times and constrict the frame range, right? So like if I go here, if this is the layout, right? And I want to animate on shot 5, I would just take the frame range because I mark it out with markers, right? I would restrict it to only this shot. So now I have only this shot, and then I would save as, and then I would name it, it's already here, right? I would name it as V001, and then I would just go ahead and start animating, and I would just go up to, I increment it based on when I feel there's danger of there being things that are lost. Is it weird to switch from Maya to Blender mindset constantly or nah? Honestly, I think not really. I think if you use them both a lot, not really. So for my full-time job currently, I'm using Maya, and it doesn't mess with me too much because I'm using both quite frequently. The way I would describe it as like, if you're playing like a certain game, game A will have certain controls. Like say you're playing like Halo. Halo has certain controls, and then you switch to playing like Call of Duty. Call of Duty is a very different game. It plays very different, and the controls are very different. But like you don't, you switch because like it's just visually so different. So that's kind of how it is for me. Like when I'm in Blender mode, my my muscles kind of know Blender, and when I'm in Maya mode, my muscles kind of know Maya. Um, so yeah. Um, I think that is. Sorry, I was kind of all over the place, but it's pretty. It's pretty. I mean, that's basically the whole planning of it. Were there any animation breakdowns you guys wanted for like a specific shot? Because I know I didn't actually go into the animation too much. I just kind of went into the shot planning because that's where I have the most fun personally, is like trying to take a scene from basically like a blank, like no camera movement, like we just have the script to like a complete scene, right? I get to like be a mini director. So, um, so you work for Subu for Goo and also main work with Maya. Actually I haven't worked for Goo for like I haven't worked for Dylan for 8 months now, actually. I have been waiting to work on a special project. I since I got this full-time job working with Maya, I haven't really had to work on. It also pays quite well, so that's like the main reason. But I do like doing these fight videos, but doing them so long and doing them one after another, it kind of like kills the magic a little bit. Like I don't want to be working on like gotcha animations until I die. You know what I mean? So um, yeah, like once we get that our special project underway, I'll be working for Dylan again. But for now, yeah, I'm just working in Maya mainly, and then like I'll do commissions or like projects that I find fun. Um, but yeah, was there uh let's see. What's your process for secondary animation like clothing and hair? The process, ooh, that's like a good one. Let me open up. I think we're kind of done with the layout file, so I'll close it. Which shot was it? I don't even remember. I think it was this one. Was it number 7? So this is something that Isaac asked me about too. Um, if you mean like the general process, generally I animate the body and I don't even consider the hair. I don't consider the wings. I don't think about anything that doesn't like move with intention, right? So like you can move your body, right? But like hair and stuff just kind of moves as a result of the body moving. I guess in Remiel's case, she can move the wings, so I guess I do think about it a little bit. But in general, um, yeah, I don't think about the clothes at all. I animate the body, I complete the body animation, I complete the face animation, and then I work on the clothing and the hair. Um, the the hair I like to do manually. I know there's a lot of add-ons out there to do um like physics animation, quote unquote, right? Oops, I wanted to turn this off. There we go. So you can see her background's not moving because I think I turned off the empty. Is it this one? Maybe this one. Yeah. So see, she's not moving in the background, and I turn it on, and suddenly she's moving. But yeah, so for the hair, it all relies on one principle basically, which is like the wave principle. I'm sure you've seen uh like animation lectures where there's like a thing and it didn't show up for some reason. View, maybe, yeah. So there's like a thing and there's like you have to animate this kind of like wavy hair thing. Like you've seen that a lot, like 2D animators will use this as an exercise, but it's literally the same thing. Like um how I would describe it is it's motion that cascades down to the final point on the appendage, right? So like usually this kind of flat thing is like a head. I think there's like usually animation exercises too where there's like, it's like broken up into like these kind of 3 FK bits, right? And you kind of animate them, you have to make them look smooth. Um, but for hair animation, for any clothing animation, it cascades, right? So it goes from here, and the motion of this affects this, and then this affects this, and this affects this. Looks all chaotic and windy, not like a simple wave. Well, so actually, if it looks chaotic and windy, it's just a wave going really fast. Like, to be honest, um, it's not like if you're meaning like it's not like a perfect sine wave. Like, of course, it's not a perfect sine wave. Um, sorry, I just drew that badly. It's not going to look like that because that's too regular. So I do try to make like the amplitude of the waves very differently. So the amplitude will be like it should look something more like that. But like if I isolate the hair, where is the hair rig? Boop, 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 boop. Rig. This one. And I can unhide certain things. Like let's say the front, this, because I think I animated the front hair manually, and I think the rest I did with like a little trick. I'll show you guys in a second. Let's just take these out and make sure only selected is on. So yeah, there are these red keys here, which you can change the keyframe color. If you select a key and you press R, you can change the keyframe type. And these are meant to mimic like 2D animation keys. So you can have your breakdowns, you can have your extremes, and then your normal keyframes. For me, I just use them as visual markers. So for me, this is a small cycle. This is a cycle, and I just boop, and then I copied it over. And that's literally all I did. So this animation cycle is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 9 frames long. And I would just take these pieces and animate them kind of one by one. Like let's say like this one up here. I would animate it in camera view. And again, like the motion of this first piece. Let me turn on pass the part out so you guys can see. I don't usually have it on, but just so you guys can see. The motion of this first piece up here affects and cascades down throughout the piece of hair. So yeah, Jam is exactly right. It's a pendulum exercise. It's just this one's kind of like a pendulum exercise on steroids a bit. But yeah, so this starts moving this way. This first starts moving this way. Let me lock this as well. So this first bone starts moving this way. That means that at the beginning, I want these two to be moving this way at the beginning. And this one, if I represent their movement with like the size of the vector, the size of the arrow, as this top bone starts moving to the right, it's going to affect and start to pull this bone to the right as well. So like its vector is going to shrink to 0 and then start moving to the right. This one is going to only start moving to the right once the middle one start moving to the right. So again, it goes from 1, 2 to 3. So you can kind of see it in slow motion here. See this? And this is just a weighting issue. Sorry, Crab, I love you, but man, this kind of happens. Yeah, you can kind of see the wave motion in action. I'll open the deformation bones. Maybe that's a little easier to see too. So you can kind of see how that's that wave, right? It went from this kind of curve. Let's do this so you can see better. It went from this kind of curve, a C curve. Now it's like an S curve, right? It went like that. So it's kind of like this. And then again, we're looking at just this top piece of hair. As the top piece, this first bone starts moving to the left, it's going to slowly drag the bottom two to the left, one by one, right? So then this middle one will start moving to the left, and then the one on the bottom will eventually start moving to the left. And then I basically just lined it up with the beginning starting pose because I didn't want to make too long of a cycle. And then I just copied the cycle throughout the entire shot. And then that's how you kind of get this kind of motion. Another thing you want to make sure of is that you want to make sure that the tip is making like a smooth motion, right? You don't want the tip to go like pa, 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 like very sharp. Like if we track the tip of like, let's say this guy here, the tip of the hair. So don't worry about the bone for now, but like, because sometimes the bone, again, this is just a weighting thing, but if we track the tip of the hair, it's going to be, hold on. If we track the tip of the hair, it'll go in like a smooth arc. So it went like this, and then it's over here, it's over here, you know? So like this is easy to track with the audience's eyes. It's kind of moving in like this kind of motion. Um, and so that'll kind of help with the feeling of smoothness as well. Um, and then yeah, I animated these front pieces of hair manually because usually when you use physics tools on the bangs, you can just get a lot of clipping, and like bangs are very important for anime characters because they frame the face. They're what make the character look like the character, right? So if they move too much, then they're gonna start kind of looking off model. So I tend to animate them manually. Um, for the hair in the back here, actually what I did, I wonder if it's still in use in this file. Let me turn off the deformation bones for now. Is I just selected all the bones, and the reason they're baked, I didn't set these keyframes one by one. The reason they're baked was because I used a noise modifier. So I went to the rotation curves. I selected all the curves, and then there's an add-on that I have called Quick Noise, and it basically just adds a noise modifier to every like curve. This guy here. Um, and this just creates that like pa 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 like crazy motion. And since it's in the back, like the quality of the motion doesn't really matter too much. Like I would say this is a very low quality way to get like wind cycle. But again, it's the back of her head, so like it kind of doesn't matter. Like people are looking at her face. And again, I wanted priority of this was to make the animation easy. So I only wanted to focus on the focal points. So everything else, I just used this noise modifier method, and then I baked it, of course, because again, I had to stitch all the animations together into one file. But I would bake it, and then it would basically just make the noise manually for me. So you can see all the curves are going kind of wild here, and that's just because of this noise modifier. And that's per curve, so you can see each curve has like different values. The phase is different, and that's very important. But the modifier does it for you automatically. A ball pushing through cloth. So Sader's kind of right. That's one thing that it seems to help a lot of people. The ball pushing through cloth. So I'm not gonna say it's not correct. It's just for me, that's not how I think about it. Um, so what Sader is saying is there's been examples of cloth animation that's supposed to be like, if you have this, if you have like a ball, I think it's like it going through the cloth this way, like it'll kind of like do the motion for you, right? Because now the ball's here, and this kind of get lags behind. Um, it's and then like as it goes through, and it's like over here, then like the cloth will be kind of like this, right? And then once the ball like leaves the cloth, it like goes down. Hey, I kind of drew a face here. Look at that. Ah. um, but for me, I think the most like sensible way to think, not insensible, that sounds judgmental. The way that makes the most sense to me to when thinking about motion is just going back to the pendulum exercise. Is if we draw this as like three distinct pieces, or it can be four distinct pieces, or however many pieces the rig has. It's all about the one closest to the bottom of the chain. This one dictates the motion. So wherever this goes, it drags this guy, the middle guy, and the middle guy will drag this guy. Um, it's kind of similar to, I don't know if you guys have seen like that slow motion of like a spring or like a slinky, right? They drop the slinky, and the slinky will go all the way down, and the bottom piece will only move once the slinky fully compresses. And it's kind of the same. Like if you move the top one, then it's going to move this middle one, and then it'll cascade down like that. Um, that's how I like to think about the motion. Do you animate the face after the body or both together? Um, I usually animate the body first, and I usually worry about the facial animation second. If it's like a really intense acting shot, I might do them together. But usually for acting shots, I have reference. So I'll film myself acting out the part, and in that way, I can know kind of what I want from the face, so I don't have to animate it immediately. I can just animate the body and really focus on getting the like body language to be good, and then I can animate the face afterwards. gonna take a sip of some tea. Holy shit. This talking thing is hard, guys. Dude, I don't know how VTubers do it. Some of these VTubers be like streaming like 12 hours a day, freaking subathon. Like their vocal folds are insane. Anyway, okay, out of left field question. If you could update the 12 principles of animation, what would you update about it? Would it still be 12 principles? Yeah, this is kind of a controversial question because a lot of animators are very they love the 12 principles, man. I think they are useful. Um, the way I would describe it is like my issue with them is not that they don't work. It's not that they don't make sense, and it's not like they don't help you make animation. It's the fact that using the 12 principles does not make your animation good, right? So like good animation will have the 12 principles executed, but doing the 12 principles does not make your animation good. Um, if that kind of makes sense. And so what I would want from a list of principles is like if I were to apply these principles, like the animation becomes good. Um, I haven't thought about it too deeply in terms of like what they would be. Like one of the things is I think spacing is not a. Let me just Google this. I'm gonna fact check myself. We'll Google together. Let's see. 12 principles of animation. So we have squash and stretch, anticipation, staging, straight ahead, pose to pose, follow through, overlapping action, slow in, slow out, arc, secondary action, timing, exaggeration, solid drawing, and appeal. So yeah, spacing is not a principle animation, even though it's very like important. Like the spacing between the frames like makes such a big difference in your animation, right? Spacing conveys acceleration, right? So the distance between these two frames here, um, the distance between these two frames here is much bigger than the distance between these two frames here. And that means that whatever motion is following this arc is slowing down, right? And like that's just like not in the principle of animation. Like they don't really explain motion that well. Um, they just kind of are observations of motion, which is like what they're meant to be. That's what they are. But I just think like the principles of animation are like something you learn about. Like, oh yeah, this is an observation of motion. But like I just feel like they're not like I don't use them. Like when I'm animating, like I don't think about that stuff. So, and then some of them are just kind of very vague, like appeal. Like what is appeal? It's like appeal feels like I got an animation note one time on like my full-time job of like this character with like it's a big weapon and they're swinging it around and doing this like cool attack. And one of the notes I got from like it was like this like C-suite CEO type shit guy. He was like, make it more badass vibes. And I'm like that like I appreciate that you feel like it is not badass enough, but that does not mean anything, you know? And that's just the kind of feedback you get when an artist or when a non-artist tries to give you feedback. Like they can tell you something is wrong. It's important to listen to feedback, especially to like your audience, because they do know when they don't like something, but they're very bad at they're very bad at like this is why it's bad. This is why they don't like it, right? So appeal kind of feels like that. It's like hey, you should add some more appeal. It's like that doesn't mean anything, dude. That like actually means nothing. Um, at least to me, like if this was broken down into something like more concrete, um, then this would be like more feeling. This obviously only applies to 2D. This is actually pretty important, but again, like, is it a principle of animation or is this just like be good at drawing? You know, like I don't know. Um, and then the other thing is like I think like pose to pose, straight ahead. Like these are workflows, so this doesn't belong in like a principle of animation, right? Like unless principles of animation are meant to be like animation as a whole. But again, most of these are observations of how motion in the world works. So it feels kind of strange for there to be suddenly a workflow that's just like dropped into it. Like I don't know. I have my issues with it. I think like it's important to know these things because like I guess anticipation is important, right? Like squash and stretch is important. But I think there's like it just feels kind of like surface level to me. It's basically how I would describe it. it needs more. It needs more. It needs to vibe more. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what? But I mean, you know, as an artist, it is your job to take that feedback and make it into something, you know. Um, as someone who was taught and has the most experience in realistic animation with filmed reference, but wants to do more anime stylized animation, do you have any advice on how to practice more dynamic stylized posing and motion? Uh, yeah, that's the whole question. Sorry, it's like scrolling while I'm reading. This is hard. Um, the if your main goal is to learn, right? I would say the easiest way to learn anything is to straight up copy. So like I can link this to you. I'm not sure. I'm sure. Let's just go. If you know about Sakugaburu, Sakugaburu, the Sakuga board. This has like high quality animation from like a bunch of different anime just like pulled together. I think one of these is mine. One of these boards is mine. I don't know where it is. I started one of these boards. I was very proud. It has a lot of um yeah, this one. That's me. Um so like when I was learning hand-to-hand combat, is like I would just look at these a lot. And like you can like for the purposes of practice, like there is nothing stopping you from just being like, I really like this motion. This is like by well, this is Wayland Jing, but this is like this is the best animator in our generation. No, I'm just kidding. Rocket Boy art. Um, there's nothing stopping you from just like copying this, like just trying to make as faithful of a copy as you can. Like obviously don't post it and be like, I made this animation because like you didn't, right? But for the purposes of learning, you can just like copy scenes that you feel are cool. Like and maybe that's not like super dynamic. Like what's a really dynamic like this? This is I think this is Kameda. No, this is Yamashita. Like this type of motion. No, this is not the one I was thinking of. This one. Yeah, this is Kameda. Like this is like how do you even like how does your mind come up with this? They start fighting and then they're like doing this and then I think they start going upside down at one point. Maybe. No, yeah, they're like upside. I'm like I don't know what's happening here. Like how do you visualize this? And if I wanted to learn how to have crazy camera motion like this guy, I would start by just copying this. Like just shamelessly copying this just to figure out like how they did the thing. Um, the other thing you can do if you want to do like highly stylized like action is just like um, one thing that is to just know like kind of what makes something dynamic. So like if you draw, I can just do a couple of examples here of like what makes action dynamic, and it's like a couple things. So one of them is um, you want a lot of motion that is either all over the screen, like so, right? Or you want a lot of motion that's like in and out of the camera, right? So you want motion that goes, you know, into the camera, and then you want motion that goes, you know, away from the camera. Those two things will tend to feel dynamic, and if you combine the two, it'll feel even more dynamic, right? Um, so if you look at an Eternal Circus, I'll pull up mine because that's the only one I can find in the short amount of time. I posted it. Did I not post it? It's on my reel, I think. Somewhere here. Somewhere here. Yes, this one. So this kind of motion, it's leading the viewer all around the screen, and it also has him going close to the camera, and then he's far away, and then he's close again. It has all the missiles coming from like behind the camera, so they have to pass by the camera, and they're really big, and then they go away. And so having that contrast is what makes dynamic animation. Um, like if I were to put it simply, like dynamic animation is all about contrast. And it can be contrast in a bunch of stuff. It can be contrast in like speed. It can be contrast in like the size of things. Um, let me open up the fuck. It's like Firefly animation. HSR. I think it's this one. Will I get banned for this for showing us stream? I don't know. I think there's a shot here where they're like running. I don't know where it is. This one here. So they're running, and they're running super fast. There's stuff blazing by the screen, but then this is like super still, and this like is super big on screen. The camera's also really low, so this has the contrast of like, you can see them running, and you can see all the environment moving past them and going super fast, but then this over here is slow, right? So there's contrast of speed, there's contrast of size as well, right? Because they're so small compared to this, like especially these guys down here. Like the sense of scale is very exaggerated. Um, you can do like contrast of timing, right? So like one character can be moving super fast compared to another character. So it's like all about contrast. You want there to be as much contrast in your animation as possible in order for there to be like, to have like the sense of like dynamism in it. Uh, Valorant competitive, my dude. Where do you take time? Uh, every time my boys want to play, I just play. Uh, and what do you think matters more in animation, posing or motion slash movement? Um, I would say it's depending on the shot. Like I don't want to say one matters more than the other. So like let me open up this shot where like they are uh fighting on like the train and stuff. Um, this shot here, um, I literally they're in my head they're bouncing balls, right? They're nothing more than like balls. So you can see she's compressed here, she stretches out. Um, and in this type of shot, the motion matters much more than the poses. You want there to be a sense of like fluidity to how they're moving, of course. You want the poses to make physical sense, but in general, um, like again, she's compressed here, stretched, compressed, stretched, and I can even remove the background so it's easier to see. Move the train. Fuck the train. She's gonna run on the air. But it's really important for this type of shot for me because they're so far away. It's not like they're close to the screen. They're so far away that like all you're really gonna see is the motion. But if they're more close up to the camera, then it'd be more important for the poses to be correct. And then there are certain types of fights where they're very like pose to pose esque. Like I think a lot of Demon Slayer stuff tends to be like that. Let me just look for one. Oops. Kimetsu. No, no, okay. Demon Slayer. There we go. I wonder if there's a fight scene here. I don't know which one. But a lot of Demon Slayer fights tend to be pose to pose in a way that I can show you if I can find one. I don't see a lot of fighting in here. Isn't this show known for fighting? What's going on? Type of series maybe? Yeah, here we go. So you can see how much they're holding their poses. Like this is not because it's 2D animation. This is because it's the style of the show. Like when they strike each other. See, like his pose. Their poses are very. Yep, boom. Look at that. Like it's very, very like snappy, and they hold their poses. And then that kind of motion, like maybe this is the style of fight you want to do, and that type of motion, the pose would matter much more than the motion. But in something like this, the motion matters much more than the pose. Again, you want the pose to be good, so like don't skip out on it if you have the time. But like again, I didn't have the time. It's like a lot of the poses aren't great, but like, I mean, again, it's just about how they move around. As long as it looks fluid to me, like I'm kind of okay. Like, I think even on the shot before, which was yeah, number 4. If we open up that one, that might even be a better example. Was this animated in pose to pose? No. So I had the it's a good question. I had the character roots done, of course, from the layout. And again, I made sure the roots aligned with the building, so I didn't actually use the root animation, but I had it as reference, like on the side. Um, but uh, I animated basically like straight ahead, and that's just the workflow that I prefer personally. I tend to animate things straight ahead. I don't do too much post-to-post stuff, but I don't think like one is better than the other. Um, like I think it's just about finding like what is most comfortable for you, like what impedes you the least, so that you can get animation done. Um, for some people, straight ahead just doesn't make any sense, and I'm like, yeah, fair enough. Like even for this one, if you look at Remiel, right, she's very much like look at this kind of pose. Like it's like straight. It's like let's do this. Oop, let's do this and this. So it's this type, which is a stretched out ball, and it's compressed. Compresses even more like this, and then she kind of goes out like this, right? So we have those kind of motion. How did you plan? How did you choreo it? Planned the spin, for example, which you show. It does not look too similar in a layout. The choreo, admittedly, I think I just did on the spot. Like the root animation that I did in the layout, um, like that informed where they were on the screen, and it gave me somewhat of an idea of like what they would be doing, like fighting wise. Um, and then after that, all I did was try to fill in the gaps. I have a lot of experience choreographing motion, so like I don't recommend like that's not a workflow I'd recommend if you're trying to start fight animation. The only reason I can do that is because I'm very experienced with making choreography. Um, Usually the way I plan choreography is that I try to find reference. So I think I did a fight one time for a Punishing Gray Raven video where it was like Alpha and Lucia. I think Alpha has like this giant sword, not like a Buster sword type thing. It's like a big katana. I think it's called an Odachi. And the way that you use that sword is much different than the way you use a normal katana because you have to maneuver it around your body in a different way. So I would basically try to find reference of people using Odachi in uh, like martial arts forms, and I would kind of study the body mechanics of how it works, and then I can um, I can make choreography based off of that. In terms of the actual moves, I don't think too much about them, to be completely honest with you. I think I focus more again on the story dynamics, like who has the upper hand at what time and why. And then if someone has the upper hand, they're usually the one attacking, and then the other person will be defending. And I usually always choreograph the attacker first. Um, it's it's something that I've been wanting to like kind of experiment with a little more because I do think if you choreograph the attacker first, the defender kind of feels sometimes a little bit too choreographed. So I want to try and experiment more with giving more love to the defender. But I mean, yeah, that's kind of my general workflow. What are your priorities when doing an animation on a tight deadline, and what's often first on the chopping block when it comes to keeping things in scope? So for me, okay, my mic just turned off on me. I don't know why I did that. Um, yeah, so going back to, I think it was Y's question. Um, the first thing that, again, I think about is how do I make the animation as easy as possible? Which means that I want the shots that I include to not be too difficult. Um, I think I can show you guys this actually. I'll go to my Google Sheets here. Sorry, this is my work timesheet. This one. So I created this spreadsheet for myself after I finished the layout, and I basically went through the layout and I judged like how difficult is this shot from a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being this is insanely difficult, and 0 being it's already done. So there's a couple of zeros here, as you can see, and that's because it's just camera animation. So there's no character animation to be done, so therefore it's a 0. 1 is like very, very easy shot. It's like that one insert shot of Miyabi, where she's like stepping towards this one here. Like this is not difficult to animate. So this is a 1, right? So I judged it kind of based off of that, and then I tallied up the numbers of, how difficult they were, and then this stuff is just to like track my progress. Um, but I wanted to make sure that I mostly had these types of shots, right? Because like a 3 is like pretty difficult. It might take like, 5 hours to animate. This is including the like hair and stuff, like trying to think about how difficult the physics animation would be. Um, but as long as things mostly remained in this realm, then I can afford a few shots here that are hard. But like you can see that most of this animation is not difficult at all. There's 3 shots that I would consider like quote unquote hard, and the rest of them are like actually relatively easy. And again, that's based on my standards. Of course, I'm a very experienced animator, so it might be different for you. But like a shot like this is not too difficult to animate for me. I think I listed this as like a 2 or a 3. I think it might have been a 3. Shot 4. Yeah, it's a 3. Right. So the camera animation and this like melon, this was taken care of during the layout. So all I had to do, there's literally no animation until like halfway through the shot. And then again, they're so far away that all that matters is that they follow this like bouncing ball principle of them like kind of attacking each other. And then it's like pretty easy after that. I had the root motion, so I kind of knew what they would have to do. So I think I did this shot in like maybe 3 hours, 4 hours. Um, I did a little cheat with Ramiel because, man, animating these wings are not. This is, I don't know why they did. Well, I know why they designed it this way. She's supposed to be an angel or whatever, but this girl has 3 sets of wings, bro. That's too much. That's too many wings. Um, but yeah, so I just made her these wings. I just scaled them down. And then I didn't animate them because I'm like, you can only see the big wings anyway. It's fine. Um, but yeah, that's my workflow for uh the choreographing section. Do you animate the characters first, then the camera, or both at the same time? Again, so this is one of those things where it's depending on the shot. Most of the time, I animate the camera first. That's a personal preference for me. So if I go to, I close the layout file. I believe. Yeah, I did close the layout file. Let me reopen it. So if you go through the layout file, this is all camera animation and like I would consider like choreography planning. So these characters aren't animated, um, but like most of the time I put the characters in frame, like this shot, because this is more of a compositional thing. I'm finding the composition that I want to work, and then I can put the characters in it. Like again, for a shot like this, like I have kind of a rough idea of like, oh, it would be kind of cool if this kind of thing happened. So I had the camera kind of stuck to Miyabi, and then I placed her in the camera. Again, this is using a falling empty, I'm pretty sure. So if I just take this out, it's one of these. I think it's this one. So yeah, and then if I stop the building from moving, then they're actually not moving at all. Like they're not moving in space at all, right? So that's what it looks like. Um, so I would set up this camera, and then I would animate the roots as to figure out like the choreography. Um, and then afterwards, again, I would make the separate file, and then I would animate the characters. So that's how I tend to go. But there are absolutely some scenarios where I animate the characters fighting first, and then I put the camera in. Um, it's usually few and far between for me. But an example would be like maybe I just can't come up with a camera angle in my head, or I don't know like what I would want to do. So I'm like, well, let's just make the motion of the characters fighting in 3D space, and then I can maybe figure out a camera afterwards. That's usually in like more grounded fight animation. Um, I think I have one that I can show. Oh, well, you know what? No, it's on my Twitter. That's easier to show. My media. Like this one here is much more realistic, grounded fight animation. So like it would be feasible here to animate the characters fighting first and then do the camera. Um, but again, in general, my workflow tends to go like choreography and camera first and then animation. So like I'm not thinking about the quality of the animation. I'm just thinking about where the characters are within the camera space, and then I can do the animation after. Is the Remiel rig available for download? I do not believe so. Will the VOD be saved? I'm recording. I hope it's working. So we're gonna see. If not, the next time I stream, I will definitely be sure to record the VOD. I didn't know that was something I was gonna have to do when I did it. So, but yeah, the VOD should be streamed. Next time, activate the thingy which allows you to go back on stream. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll figure out how to do that. Thank you, Zap. I will write that down. Give me a second. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of all I had to show you guys. Again, unless you wanted a breakdown of a shot in specific, I know this is a lot of animation, so I've been kind of all over the place because I kind of fuck a wee ball with the stream, but hopefully I would like this to be a regular thing. Obviously, I'm not gonna always have animation of my own to break down, but it'd be really cool to just like animate like live for people, and hopefully it not be boring. I have a couple of like animation projects I wanna do, so and maybe it'd be fun to do it with people. Y'all came from Crab server? Wait, I'm in Crab server. Hold on. Are you guys all in there? Oh no, I think I'm just in his rig server. Is this different? Do I not have perms? Does Crab hate me? Yeah, Crabnut's rigs. I'm in the server. I don't see. Hmm. Off topic, huh? Maybe. I don't know what the link is. Um, the Everflare. After doing the layout, when doing the animation, do you delete the keyframes in the layout and replace it with new keyframes for animation, or do you add on? Most of the time, I delete the layout animation completely. Um, that's what I encourage. I used to do layout a lot for like Dylan Goo, and I would try to encourage the animators to do it, and they were very hesitant about deleting the layout animation because I think like it creates more work, I guess, in their head. Like for me, once I have the layout and I have the like this is where the characters are in space and what they're supposed to be doing. I'm like, fantastic. All right, get this layout out of my face. I can make something new and better. Um, that's just how I tend to work. But and not everybody works that way, I suppose. Yes, join Crab server. Crab server is awesome. This guy releases awesome rigs like pretty regularly. Yeah, so if you're not like comfortable with like deleting the layout, like you don't have to. I don't think it's like a better way to work by any means, but just for me, like once I have an idea of like what the layout is trying to do, and again, I'll save the layout like as like a backup so I can always have it if I want to go back to it. But um I don't know, for me deleting the animation kind of allows me to have the idea of the layout initially, but then start kind of fresh and be able to push the idea that was originally there, be able to like kind of exaggerate more and make it more because usually layout is done very quickly. Layout's not meant to be the final um like it's not meant to be the final thing, right? Like in theory, the animation should be better than the layout. So whenever I get layout, I always try to improve upon it. I don't try to change it, right? I want to find the main idea of the layout and then I want to push it just a little bit, push it in a way that makes it like more fun to watch, basically. Do you animate with the root often, or was it just in this case? Just in this case. I usually don't animate the root, and in a lot of these shots I didn't animate the root. Like again, there was this shot here where like the root animation was just to get a rough idea of their placement in the world. Um, but afterwards, the root didn't move at all. Yeah, so the layout is a general idea of where the scene is going, exactly. Um, it's more for the director to see, because again, I did this entire layout in a weekend, and I think I had like 3 weekends to get this done. Um, so like if I didn't have something done that weekend to show Subutai, then he has nothing to approve. Um, and then I'm on even more of an animation crunch, right? Because he hasn't even seen the scene yet. So like, what if I show him what if I showed him this scene and he was like, I don't like it. You have to change this and this and this and this and this. And luckily he did like it. Um, but you want to show whoever's in charge of the project your idea as soon as possible. Like whatever way is most comfortable for you. Like this is most comfortable for me is animating in 3D layout. Um, and I can show the director and they can be like, "Ah, sweet. Yeah, this looks good. Okay, go ahead with this." And then now that I have the okay, I don't have to worry about like big notes. I don't have to worry about him saying like, "Oh, make this shot longer or make this shot shorter. Take this shot out or like, do a different move here." Like I don't have to worry about any of that stuff because it's all been approved. So I can just go ham on the animation and kind of do my thing. Yeah, so in some shots you have the root static and then you post them away from the root normally. Yeah. And in general, that's shots where they're contacting the ground. In a shot like this, for example, actually maybe not even in a shot like this. Let me check. Are their roots moving? Yeah, the roots aren't moving here. You can see them in the back right there and right there. So this is animated normally. I think this shot had their roots moving. Because they're just like in the air. I think I mean it's kind of a little bit arbitrary. Let me take off the train here. Holy shit, this train is annoying. There we go. So I think the root animation it was good enough of a motion here for me to just like animate it. So I just kind of did. Um, and it wasn't that big a deal. Another thing just that may help in like these types of flying shots is the character is parented. Like I just can move the whole character with the cog. So the feet and the hands are all parented. Um, I don't know if anyone's asked about like FK and IK, but like I exclusively animate in IK pretty much. So um, yeah, in this case, I would just have all the IKs parented to the torso control. Some animators don't use the root control for run cycles. Um, I mean, I'm one of those animators that doesn't like if the character's running through the environment, I don't usually do a run cycle and then move the root. Um, I can't think of a situation where I would ever actually do that. I'm trying to think. I'm certain I've done it before. Probably in a shot of like where the character's running for an extended period of time. But like most of the time when the character runs, it's like they're running and then they have to jump over something and then they have to like do this and that. So maybe they're taking like in total like 4 steps. Um, so I just find it faster personally to just animate them running through space. I don't want to have to mess with like, okay, for these frames, the root is moving forward and they're in a run cycle, and then the root stops after that, and then they jump over a thing and do like it's less resistance for me. It's much simpler to just animate them running through space and then they do a thing. They jump, they do their fighting thing, whatever they do. Yes, brother, 4 a.m. Yeah, even the hands in IK. I can show you. Do I have? What is this? What version of Blender is this? 3.6. I have a rig I can open to show you my setup. Let's open Ruby Rose Volume 1. Is she rigged here? I think she is. Hope so. She is not. Oh wait, no. Yes. So usually I have the character rigs, yeah, in IK. So just like this. And then I have the IK parent, I have it set to the torso. So it's like she would move like this. And then if I move the chest, the hand doesn't move. And that's how I usually animate the hands. Hold on, let me catch up on the questions a bit. Uh, so Puggy Artist, I see a lot the technique of parenting characters to the camera. Why is this used? Basically, um, animating characters moving through space is quite hard, right? So like if the camera is tracking like the character, right? So the character's moving like this, and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and the character is tracking them, or the camera is tracking them. Um, Having both of their graph editor curves like line up so that way they're like in the camera together and they're like tracking properly, like that's quite hard. Um, so if I open up, what's a shot that like would be good to show? I don't think in any of these shots the characters are parented to the camera, to be honest with you. But um, oh no, I'm lying. This is sort of not true. Actually, you know what? Let's go. Well, we're gonna open up an oldies. We're gonna open up. Do I not have it anymore? No. Sorry, guys. I don't think I have the Yishuan fight. Damn. Okay. Unfortunate. Well, then we'll go ahead and just open this number 5 again. But basically, the reason that you parent the characters to the camera is because sometimes the characters are moving through space very fast. And like, especially, I think I showed this a little bit before. Again, they're fighting while falling down the building, right? So like the viewport looks like this. So you can they're right here. You can see them, the train. They're falling down, right? And that means that anytime I want to animate their motion, I'm going keyframe by keyframe, and if I'm up close to it, it's like, okay, I'm animating Miyabi, and I'm like, okay, blah blah blah. I like move her controls, do stuff, go back frame. I gotta move. Fuck. I gotta go down here. And I gotta move. Fuck. And it's like annoying. So the reason they're parented to not the camera here, but they're parented to believe this empty here. One of these. This one here. The reason they're parented to this empty here is because I can just animate them. If I turn this off, I can just animate them like in like a relatively contained space, right? And then I can have the empty do the falling motion after. So the empty is what creates the illusion of falling, because the empty is what's moving. But like when I'm actually animating, this thing is off, and I'm just animating in this contained space here. And that's like one reason why you would parent the characters to the camera. So, oh yeah, this answers official Zane's question, I guess. Like, did you animate the characters and the train actually falling from the building? It's not the environment moving. Again, it's just this empty moving. I couldn't move the environment, unfortunately, because if I move the building, then if I point down, then you'll be able to see the building is not connected to the ground. So that was just kind of the constraint that I had to work with. Is it harder to make arcs with hands in IK? Not really. Obviously FK gives you like arcs for free because you can just set like 2 keyframes like and it'll just rotate in an arc, but like the way that I do blocking animation, it might even be in this file. I hope it's not baked already, but it might be. But like you could see how many keyframes there are for like the cog, right? So that's this guy here, the torso control. You can see like how frequently I keyframe things, like even for the legs here. How frequently things are keyframed. So as long as you're setting enough keys, like getting an arc isn't that hard, to be honest. Yeah, in the view tab, you can lock the view to the character. That's true. The issue with that is that you can't change the pivot point. So like right now I'm pivoting around like it looks like around here, but if I can Alt and middle click and now I'm pivoting around here. I can pivot around the character. Whereas if I change the view lock and I lock it to like the hair. Oh, what? Why did it do that? How strange. I want to lock it to the rig. And then head. Let's just say it locks to the head. Like if I move over here, right? And let's go to a space where they're more separate. So you can see the view is like locked to the head. But if I want to animate Remiel, and I go over here, then when I rotate, it's still rotating around like this. See, it's rotating around the head. See, even when I zoom out, it's rotating around the head, and it's very hard to control. So I would have to change this every single time. Um, so I don't tend to use this that much unless I'm animating like a single character. But yeah, I think that's it. I definitely want to try to stream again, like next weekend. I want to use those characters that I showed off briefly because I made them as an update to um the rigs I've released once before. It was the Teo Kenji rig. Um, if it will open, come on, Blenda, come on, Blenda. Yeah, this guy here. And like the Kenji rig as well. Like I don't know, I gave them like a whole face and shit, and it's like kind of fun. So these are much more advanced than the rigs I've released before for these guys. Like I think before they didn't even have a face. Um, so I want to do a project with these guys. I want to do some VFX and stuff. So maybe we'll do that next weekend or something, or maybe during the week. I don't know. I want to stream more. I have to figure out like when the ideal times to stream are, like for my schedule though. With this much scale, how much RAM does Blender take? Probably quite a bit. You can see this is 7.8 out of 12 gigabytes. I have a pretty, I don't know, it's not an amazing PC, but it's pretty decent. So, when you're working like on like big projects, you want to have a better PC. But if you're just working on like independent stuff, yeah, you can kind of get away. Like I think for a long time I used a laptop, and so it's like kind of fine. But yeah, I think I'm gonna call it here. And I'll see you guys hopefully next week or sometime in the middle of the week. How long I've been animating for? I started animating in August of 2018. Okay. What? I should have an outro card. Fuck. Goodbye, friends. Friends. I love you all. Fuck. Love you all. And then I guess I will I'll leave this here for a few seconds. But yeah. Bye bye.